The emergency meeting was called that same evening. High Curator Zefman sat at the head of the council table in the Grand Preserve's main building. Around him, 12 other Zilari officials whispered and gestured with obvious distress. Their green skin rippled with patterns that showed deep worry. "We must discuss what we learned today," Zefman began. "The humans have revealed something about their nature that disturbs me greatly." Elder Nefquil, the oldest member of the council, spoke first. They spoke of hunting and eating apex predators as if it were normal behavior. "This is beyond my understanding. It is worse than that," said Research Director Velan. "They spoke of driving entire species to extinction through hunting. How can any intelligent species do such a thing?" Meanwhile, in their guest quarters, the human delegation was having their own discussion. Commander Morrison sat on his bed, while the others gathered around him. "I think we made a mistake today," Morrison said. "The Zilari seemed really upset by our conversation." Dr. Park was reviewing her notes. "Their entire worldview is built around preserving and protecting their apex predator. To them, the idea of hunting such creatures is probably like suggesting they destroy their most sacred temples." "But they asked us direct questions," Ben Carter protested. "Were we supposed to lie about our history? No, but we could have been more diplomatic about it," Maria Santos said. "We need to remember that different cultures have different values." Danny Brooks was looking out the window at the forest. "I still don't understand why they're so worked up about it. It's just natural selection. If we can hunt them, we're better predators." "That's exactly the kind of thinking that upset them," Dr. Park said. "They don't see it as competition. They see it as destroying something sacred." Back in the council chamber, the Zilari were trying to understand what they had learned about humans. "Let me make sure I understand correctly," Elder Nefquil said. "The humans claim they became intelligent and then used that intelligence to hunt creatures that were larger and more dangerous than themselves." "That is what they said," Zefman confirmed. "And they killed so many of these creatures that entire species disappeared from their world." "Yes, and they speak of this as if it were a normal and acceptable thing. They seemed proud of it," whispered Research Director Velan. The council sat in shocked silence. Finally, Security Chief Kothmal spoke up. "What does this mean for our safety? If humans hunt apex predators for food, what stops them from hunting us?" "They seem peaceful enough," Zefman said, though his voice was uncertain. "They have been polite and respectful during their visit, but they carry weapons." Kothmal pointed out, "I have seen the devices on their belts, and they brought what? They call security personnel with them. Perhaps we should ask them directly about their intentions," suggested Elder Nefquil. "Or perhaps we should end this cultural exchange immediately." Kothmal said, "These creatures are not like any species we have encountered before." The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted to send the humans away immediately. Others thought they should try to understand human culture better. A few believed the humans might be lying or exaggerating about their hunting abilities. The next morning, High Curator Zefman requested a private meeting with Commander Morrison. They met in a small conference room in the research center. Zefman looked tired and worried. Commander Morrison, I must ask you some difficult questions about your species. Zephyrin began, of course. We want to be completely honest with you. Yesterday, your people spoke of hunting and killing apex predators. Is this really true? Morrison nodded. Yes, it's true. Humans have been hunting large predators for thousands of years. It's part of our evolutionary history, and you drove many species to extinction, unfortunately. Yes, we weren't always careful about conservation. We've learned to do better in recent centuries. Zephyr's skin rippled with distress. How is it possible for prey species to hunt their apex predators? This contradicts everything we know about evolution and intelligence. Morrison thought carefully before answering. I think there's a misunderstanding about what apex predators are on Earth. Humans became apex predators by using tools and working together. We didn't need to be bigger or stronger than other predators. We just needed to be smarter. You became apex predators? That's right. Humans are the apex predators on Earth now. We're at the top of the food chain. Zephyr was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was very small. What do apex predators do when they encounter other species? Morrison realized the direction of the conversation. Zephyr, we're not here to hunt or harm anyone. We're explorers and scientists. We want to learn about other cultures and share knowledge. But if you were hungry, if you needed food, we brought our own food supplies. And we would never harm an intelligent species like yours. What about non-intelligent species? Morrison hesitated. Well, that would depend on the circumstances. But we're not here for that purpose. Zephyr's worst fears were being confirmed. The humans were apex predators who evaluated other species as potential food sources. Even if they claimed to be peaceful, their nature was fundamentally different from anything the Zalari had encountered. Commander Morrison, may I ask what happened to the other intelligent species on your world? Other intelligent species? There weren't any. Humans are the only intelligent species that evolved on Earth. What about the species that were almost intelligent? The ones that might have become intelligent if they had more time? Morrison thought about this. I suppose some of the great apes might have developed intelligence eventually. Maybe dolphins or elephants. But evolution doesn't work that way. It's not a planned process. Where are those species now? Some are extinct. Others are endangered. We're trying to protect the ones that are left. Zephyr felt sick. The humans had not only killed their apex predators, they had also eliminated potential rival intelligent species. They were the only intelligent life on their world because they had destroyed or dominated everything else. Commander, I need to ask you something very important. When your people look at our craft tell, what do you see? Morrison was confused by the question. I see an impressive predator. Large, powerful, well adapted to its environment. Why do you see food? The question hung in the air between them. Morrison realized how important his answer was. Zephyr, we see a creature that deserves respect and protection. We understand how important the Craftel are to your culture and your ecosystem. We would never do anything to harm them. But if they were on your world, if they were not protected by our laws and customs, Morrison was honest. If they were, threatening human settlements. We would probably relocate them or hunt them. But that's not the situation here. Zefmin stood up slowly. I think I understand now. Thank you for your honesty, Commander Morrison. That afternoon, the tour of the Grand Preserve continued as planned. But everything had changed. The Zalari guides were nervous and careful. They watched the humans constantly, especially the two. Marines. Dr. Park noticed the change in atmosphere. Is everything all right? You all seem worried about something. We are fine, Zefmin said, but his voice was tight with stress. They were walking along a path through the forest when it happened. A young craftel, barely half the size of an adult, came crashing through the trees. It had somehow escaped from the juvenile enclosure and was running wild through the preserve. The Zalari researchers immediately began their emergency procedures. They pulled out communication devices and started calling for help. Security teams were dispatched. Stun weapons were prepared. Everyone stay calm, Zefmin announced. The containment teams will be here soon. We just need to keep our distance until they can safely capture the juvenile. The young craftel was about 50 meters away, looking around with confusion and fear. Its crystalline scales were still developing, giving it a patchy appearance. It was clearly lost and frightened. How long until your teams arrive, Commander? Morrison asked. Perhaps 30 minutes, Zefmin replied. Maybe longer. They need to prepare the proper equipment. The juvenile craftel suddenly noticed the group of beings watching it. It turned toward them and began moving in their direction. Its movements were awkward and unpredictable. Is it dangerous? Maria Santos asked. Very dangerous, Zefmin said. Even a juvenile can kill several adult Zalari. We must retreat immediately. But as the Zalari began to back away, the juvenile craftel moved faster. It was closing the distance between itself and the group. Its claws extended and its mouth opened slightly. It's going to attack, Danny Brooks said quietly. The containment teams will be here soon, Zefmin said desperately. We just need to keep moving away from it. But the juvenile was moving faster than they could retreat. It was now only 20 meters away and approaching quickly. That was when Commander Morrison made the decision that would change everything between humans and Zalari forever. Ambassador Zefta stood in the great council chamber of the Celestial Harmony. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. All of them had come to hear his report about the strange humans. The species calls itself human, Zefta began. They inhabit the third planet of a yellow star system. Population 8 billion. Technology level is primitive, but advancing rapidly. Council leader Murdoch, a tall creature with silver skin and no visible eyes, spoke first. You said they were unusual. How so? They refused our standard integration offer. A murmur went through the chamber. In the 3,000-year history of the Valloni Empire, no species had ever refused integration. Refused? Asked Councillor Yethara, her tentacles writhing with confusion. Did they not understand the benefits? They understood perfectly, Zefta replied. But they value something they call independence more than safety. Dr. Velinari, the Empire's chief expert on alien psychology, stepped forward. Her species had been studying the minds of other races for centuries. Show us the recording of your meeting. The center of the chamber filled with a holographic display. The council watched as Envoy Kreltesh spoke with Captain Ryan Clark and Dr. Susan Ward. They saw the humans ask questions, make demands, and finally refuse the Empire's offer. When the recording ended, the chamber was silent. Fascinating, Dr. Velinari said finally. Notice their body language. No signs of submission. No fear responses. They actually seem to grow more confident as the conversation continues. How is this possible? Asked Councillor Freckval. Our ships are clearly superior to theirs. Our technology is thousands of years ahead of theirs. They should be terrified. Dr. Velinari studied the recording again. Perhaps they do not understand the difference in our capabilities. Then we must educate them, said Council Leader Murdoch. Send a military demonstration. Show them what resistance means. On Earth, the world's leaders met in emergency session. President Catherine Burke looked around the table at the faces of her advisors. General Paul Griffin had dark circles under his eyes from 3 days without sleep. Dr. Susan Ward looked pale and worried. What are our options? President Burke asked. Limited, General Griffin admitted. We have 6 nuclear submarines, 3 aircraft carriers, and about 50 fighters that can reach low orbit. They have a ship the size of Manhattan floating above. U.S. What about our space capabilities? Asked Secretary of Defense Monica Lewis. Frontier 1 is our only permanent space station. We have 2 shuttles that can reach orbit. And the Mars colony ship Phoenix is still under construction. Against their technology, we might as well be throwing rocks. Dr. Ward looked up from her notes. I've been studying the aliens' behavior during our meeting. They seemed genuinely confused by our refusal to surrender, like they've never encountered resistance before. Maybe that's our advantage, said President Burke. They don't know how to deal with people who won't give up. Or maybe, General Griffin said grimly, they're just going to hit us harder until we do. The President stood up. Either way, we're not surrendering. Start moving our most important assets underground, civilian populations to the prepared bunkers, and get Admiral Tony Martinez on the line. If we're going to fight, we need our best people ready. On Mars, the small human colony of New Phoenix was home to 200 people. They had come to build humanity's first permanent settlement on another world. The colony was small but growing, with greenhouses, living quarters, and a small spaceport. Commander Alex Turner was checking the daily reports when his communication officer, Sergeant Tim Walsh, called out, Sir, we have incoming ships, 3 vessels, unknown configuration. Alex dropped his tablet and ran to the communications center. The main screen showed 3 alien craft approaching Mars. They were smaller than the ship orbiting Earth, but still larger than anything humans had built. Are they responding to our signals? Alex asked. Negative, sir. They're on a direct course for the colony. Alex felt his heart race. New Phoenix had no military defenses. It was a scientific and agricultural colony. The 50 security personnel were equipped for dealing with equipment failures and medical emergencies, not alien invasion. Sound the general alarm, Alex ordered. All non-essential personnel to the underground shelters. Security teams to defensive positions. Sir, Sergeant Walsh said. What defensive positions? We don't have any weapons that can stop ships. Alex looked at the approaching vessels. They would land in less than an hour. Then we make some. The 3 alien ships landed in the desert outside New Phoenix Colony. Each one was about the size of a large building, smooth and silver like polished metal. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the ships opened, and aliens began to emerge. They were different from the diplomatic aliens who had visited Earth. These wore armor that seemed to absorb light. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. They moved with the precision of trained soldiers. War leader Vekanul commanded the assault force. His species, the Krexti, had been the Empire's primary military race for over 1,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. This tiny human colony should be easy to subdue. Resistance level? He asked his tactical officer. Minimal. Sir, 50 humans with primitive weapons. They have taken positions around their main buildings. Standard procedure. Demand surrender. If they refuse, demonstrate our superiority. Minimal casualties. Vekanul activated his communication system. Human colony. This is War Leader Vekanul of the Veloni Empire. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and you will not be harmed. Commander Alex Turner's voice came back immediately. This is Commander Turner of New Phoenix Colony. We are not surrendering. This is human territory. Vekanul was surprised. Most species surrendered immediately when faced with Krexti battle armor and energy weapons. Commander Turner, you have 50 soldiers with primitive weapons. I have 300 warriors with advanced technology. Surrender is your only option. We'll take our chances, Alex replied. Vekanul looked at his tactical officer. Are they insane? Unknown. Sir, shall we demonstrate our weapons? Yes. Fire on that empty building to the north. Show them what our weapons can do. One of the Krexti warriors aimed his energy rifle at a storage building and fired. The beam of blue light struck the building, and it exploded in a shower of metal and flame. Impressive. Came Alex's voice over the radio. Now watch this. The humans had been busy during the conversation. They had rigged explosives throughout the area where the alien ships had landed. Now they detonated them all at once. The ground erupted in a series of massive explosions. 2 of the alien ships were damaged. Their smooth hulls cracked and blackened. Several alien warriors were thrown to the ground. Impossible, Vekanul muttered. How did they place explosives without us detecting them? They used chemical explosives. Sir, very primitive. Our sensors were calibrated for energy weapons. The battle began in earnest. The aliens advanced with energy weapons and personal shields. The humans met them with rifles, grenades, and improvised weapons. It should have been a massacre. Instead, it became a nightmare for the Krexti warriors. The humans fought like nothing in the Empire's military database. When their positions were overrun, they fell back to secondary positions. When those were taken, they moved to tertiary positions. When they ran out of ammunition, they used knives and tools. When they were wounded, they kept fighting. Most disturbing of all, They seemed to enjoy the battle. "Sir," reported one of Veckanal's officers, "the humans are laughing." "Laughing?" "Yes, sir. Even when they're wounded. They're laughing and shouting at us." Veckanal watched through his tactical display as a human soldier, bleeding from multiple wounds, charged directly at 3 Krexti warriors while screaming something in his native language. "What is he saying?" Veckanal asked his translator. "He appears to be asking if we want to dance, sir." The battle lasted 6 hours. The aliens had superior weapons, armor, and numbers. But the humans had something the Krexti had never encountered: absolute refusal to admit defeat. When the last human position was finally overrun, 23 humans lay dead. But they had destroyed 1 alien ship completely, damaged the other 2, and killed 47 Krexti warriors. More importantly, they had wounded the pride of the Empire's finest military unit. Veckanal stood in the ruins of New Phoenix Colony, looking at the destruction. His tactical officer approached. "Sir, the colony is secured, but our casualties are unacceptable." "How many?" 47 dead, 93 wounded, against 50 primitive humans. Veckanal was quiet for a long moment. "In my 200 years of service, I have never lost so many warriors to such a small force. Sir, the humans fought with an intensity we've never seen. They seemed to prefer death to surrender. Prepare a full report for command. Include everything, every detail of how they fought." "Yes, sir." "What should I put in the conclusion?" Veckanal looked at the burning ruins around him. "Put that we have encountered something new, something dangerous. These humans do not fight like any other species we have faced. Sir, they fight like they want to die, but they want to take us with them." The report reached the Celestial Harmony 12 hours later. Dr. Velinari read it 3 times before calling an emergency council session. "The implications are disturbing," she told the assembled council. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. Council leader Murdoch looked round the chamber at the worried faces of representatives from across the galaxy. The human problem was getting worse. "Report," he ordered. Dr. Velinari stepped forward, her tentacles moving nervously. "The humans have been classified as a Class 7 threat. This is the highest danger level we have ever assigned to a pre-spaceflight species." "Explain this classification," said Counselor Yethara. "Class 7 indicates a species that poses an existential threat to galactic stability. The humans meet all criteria. They refuse diplomatic solutions. They show unprecedented resistance to superior force. Most concerning, they appear to be inspiring other species to rebellion." Murmurs of worry filled the chamber. For 3,000 years, the Empire had maintained peace through strength. No species had ever successfully resisted integration. "What kind of inspiration?" asked Counselor Threkval. "Intelligence reports indicate that subject species on 14 worlds have begun asking questions about their status in the Empire. Some have requested renegotiation of their treaties. 3 worlds have stopped sending their required tribute shipments." The chamber fell silent. This was unprecedented. Fleet Admiral Zondar entered the chamber. He was a massive creature, built for war, with scars covering his armored hide. "Council Leader, I have prepared the largest military force in Empire history. 12 battle fleets, 800 ships, 2 million warriors, to destroy one small planet, asked Dr. Velinari. To destroy the idea that the Empire can be resisted. Zondar replied, "We cannot allow other species to believe that rebellion is possible." Council leader Murdoch nodded slowly. "Very well. Commence Operation Final Integration. The human world will serve as an example to the galaxy." On Earth, General Patricia Moore stood in the war room buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around her, dozens of officers studied displays showing the approaching alien fleet. The numbers were overwhelming. 800 ships, said Marshal Carlos Rivera, shaking his head. Our entire space capability is 6 shuttles and 1 space station. What about our ground forces? Asked Admiral Scott Johnson. Every military unit on Earth, about 2 million soldiers total. But they have superior weapons, armor, and air support. Double quotes Dr. Helen Carter, the head of Earth's reverse engineering program, spoke up. We've learned some things from the wreckage. On Mars, their energy weapons work on focused particle beams. Their armor is strong, but has weak points at the joints. What about their ships? General Moore asked. Impressive, but they seem to rely heavily on automation, small crews. If we can get aboard them, we might be able to cause significant damage, General. Moore looked at the tactical display. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know the odds. We can't win a conventional fight, so we're not going to fight conventionally. She activated the main display, showing a map of the solar system. Operation Madhouse begins now. We're going to make them think we're crazy, because by their standards, we probably are. The plan was unlike anything in military history. Earth would appear to surrender, then launch the most vicious guerrilla campaign ever conceived. Every human civilian had been evacuated to underground bunkers and hidden bases. The surface cities were empty shells, rigged with explosives and traps. Captain Linda Foster led the first phase. Her unit, the Ghost Battalion, had trained for months in captured alien equipment. Their mission was simple and insane: board enemy ships and cause as much damage as possible before being killed. Remember, Linda told her soldiers, we're not trying to win battles. We're trying to make them afraid to fight us. Lieutenant Frank Davis, the battalion's explosives expert, grinned. I've got enough homemade bombs to make their ships very unhappy places to be. What's the extraction plan? Asked Sergeant Pete Collins. There isn't one, Linda replied. This is a one-way mission. We go up, we cause hell. We don't come back. The soldiers looked at each other. Then Sergeant Collins started laughing. Well, at least we won't have to worry about retirement. Planning. The entire unit joined in the laughter. Dr. Velinari would have found their psychological profiles terrifying. The alien fleet arrived on schedule. Fleet Admiral Zondar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and looked at the blue world below. It looked so peaceful. Soon it would be just another conquered territory. Any resistance? He asked his tactical officer. None detected, sir. Their space station has gone dark. No ships approaching. They appear to have surrendered. Too easy, Zondar muttered. Begin landing operations, secure the major population centers. The first wave of alien ships descended toward Earth's cities. They found them empty. Every major city on the planet was deserted. Streets that should have been filled with millions of people were silent and empty. "Where are they?" asked Commander Vextel as his ship landed in what had been New York City. His answer came in the form of massive explosions. The humans had turned their own cities into death traps. Buildings collapsed in carefully planned sequences. Underground explosives destroyed roads and landing areas. The aliens found themselves in urban mazes filled with booby traps and ambush points. But the real terror began when the Ghost Battalion reached orbit. Captain Linda Foster's ship was nothing more than a modified cargo pod with chemical rockets and basic life support. It looked like space junk. The alien sensors ignored it completely. Linda and her 12 soldiers used magnetic clamps to attach their pod to the hull of a Krexty destroyer. They cut through the outer plating with simple cutting torches and crawled inside like deadly parasites. "This is Foster," she whispered into her radio. "We're inside the Sword of Vector, beginning demolition." The aliens never knew what hit them. Frank Davis had spent months studying captured alien technology. He knew exactly where to place his explosives for maximum damage. While Linda and her team fought their way through the ship's corridors, Frank systematically destroyed critical systems. The Krexty crew was trained for space combat, not boarding actions by suicidal humans with improvised weapons. They found themselves fighting an enemy that preferred to die taking aliens with them rather than retreat to safety. "Security alert," came the ship's announcement. "Intruders have breached engineering sections 5 through 12. Commander Vector, who had survived the Mars colony battle, felt a familiar chill. "How many intruders?" 12, sir. "Armed with primitive weapons." 12. Vector couldn't believe it. "Deploy to 100 security troops. Crush them immediately." But the humans didn't fight like normal boarders. They used the ship's own systems against the crew. They poisoned air recycling systems. They overloaded power conduits. They turned maintenance tunnels into killing grounds. Most disturbing of all, they kept laughing. Staff Sergeant Kelly Murphy found herself surrounded by 20 alien soldiers. In the ship's main corridor, she was wounded, out of ammunition, and alone. By any reasonable military doctrine, she should have surrendered. Instead, she pulled the pins on her last 3 grenades and charged straight at the aliens while screaming, "Come on, you ugly bastards. Let's dance." The explosion took out an entire section of the ship's command structure. Similar scenes played out across the alien fleet. Small groups of humans, armed with nothing but chemical explosives and unbreakable determination, turned mighty warships into floating tombs. Within 6 hours, the aliens had lost 12 ships to boarding actions. Hundreds more were damaged by internal explosions and sabotage. The psychological impact was even worse than the physical damage. "Sir," reported Zondar's intelligence officer, "we're receiving requests for transfer from 17 ship commanders. They don't want to serve in human space anymore." Transfer requests. Zondar couldn't believe what he was hearing. "We are the Imperial Fleet. We do not retreat from primitive humans." "Sir," The crew psychological profiles are showing severe stress reactions. They're afraid of being boarded by suicide troops on the ground. The battle was equally nightmarish for the alien forces. Every building they entered was trapped. Every street was a potential ambush site. The humans had turned their entire planet into a weapon. Commander Vextel's troops found themselves fighting an enemy that appeared from sewers, attacked from rooftops, and disappeared into tunnel systems that seemed to connect every building on the planet. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "3rd Battalion has taken 60% casualties trying to secure one city block." "From how many human defenders?" "Best estimate is 15. "Sir," Vextel stared at his tactical display. 15 humans had held off 300 elite Krexti warriors for 8 hours and were still fighting. "What are their demands?" he asked. "Sir," the humans. "What do they want?" "Surely they must want something." "They haven't made any demands, sir. They just keep fighting." The worst part came when the aliens tried to take prisoners. Human soldiers who were captured alive would wait until they were brought aboard ships or to command posts, then detonate hidden explosives. The aliens learned that taking human prisoners was more dangerous than leaving them free. Dr. Velinari studied the battle reports from her laboratory ship, far from the fighting. The data was unlike anything in her files. The humans were fighting a war of psychological destruction. As much as physical combat, they're not trying to win, she told her research team. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The humans had forced the mighty Imperial fleet to retreat. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Villoni Empire had failed to conquer a world. On the mining world of Kefra Prime, slave workers stopped their digging and looked up at the stars. Supervisor Gorthak noticed the change immediately. "Back to work." He shouted at the Kefran miners, "Your quotas are not complete." But the miners moved slowly. One of them, an old Kefran named Vilkter, spoke quietly to his fellow workers. "The humans won. They actually won." "Impossible," said another miner. "No one defeats the Empire." "They didn't defeat them," Vilkter replied. "They made them go away, made them afraid." Supervisor Gorthak heard the whispers and felt worried. Rebellious thoughts were dangerous. They spread like a disease. Similar conversations were happening on hundreds of worlds. Species that had been conquered generations ago suddenly began to wonder if the humans could resist. Why couldn't they? On Earth, Admiral Gary Bell stood on the bridge of the captured alien ship Thunder's Edge. His engineering teams had spent 3 months learning to operate the alien technology. Now they were ready to take the fight to the enemy. "Status report," Gary ordered. Commander Nancy Price, his tactical officer, smiled. "All systems operational, sir. We've integrated human weapons with alien technology. The ship is faster and hits harder than anything the Empire has. Crew status, 500 volunteers, sir. All ready to show the aliens what humans can do with their own technology." Gary looked at the star charts. The nearest alien supply base was only 2 days away. "Set course for Omega Station. Time to go hunting." The attack on Omega Station became legendary throughout the galaxy. The humans approached using proper Imperial fleet identification codes. The station's defenders assumed it was a returning patrol ship, until the Thunder's Edge opened fire. But this wasn't a normal attack. The humans had studied alien psychology and learned something important. Aliens feared the unknown more than superior firepower. Instead of destroying the station quickly, the humans played with it. They disabled its weapons but left communications working. They cut power to some sections but not others. They boarded the station in small groups that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Station Commander Yelkina sent desperate messages to Fleet Command. Request immediate assistance. Under attack by unknown force. They're not trying to destroy. US, they're hunting us. The humans had learned to use fear as a weapon. They left some alien crew members alive to spread stories. They took prisoners and then released them with messages for the Empire. The message was always the same. Tell your leaders that Earth remembers Mars. Tell them we're coming. Dr. Rebecca Miller had become Earth's leading expert on alien technology, working in secret laboratories. She and her team developed weapons that combined human engineering with alien science. The aliens build for efficiency. She explained to her research team, we build for destruction. When you combine the two approaches, you get something terrifying. Her latest creation was the Hellfire missile. It used alien propulsion systems to achieve incredible speed, but carried a human-designed warhead that created massive explosions. How massive? Asked Dr. Kevin Walsh. Big enough to crack a moon. Rebecca replied, the aliens have never seen anything like it because they would never build something so dangerous. Why not? Because they're sane. We're not. Commander Tyler Brooks led a different kind of mission. His job was to train alien defectors who had abandoned their own fleets to fight alongside humans. The first defector was a young Catherine named Sylvac. He had escaped from a mining world after hearing about the human victory at Earth. Why do you want to fight with us? Tyler asked during the interview. Because you showed us it's possible, Sylvac replied. For my whole life, I believed the Empire was too strong to resist. You proved that wrong. Fighting with us means you'll probably die. Sylvac's eyes hardened. I'd rather die fighting than live as a slave. Tyler smiled. Welcome to the human fleet. Within 6 months, Tyler had trained over 100 alien defectors. They came from dozens of species, all inspired by humanity's example. The psychological impact on the Empire was devastating. Captain Samantha Cole commanded the diplomatic ship Freedom's Voice. But her missions weren't about making peace. They were about making the Empire's situation worse. She arrived at the Crystalline, Hegemony's capital, with a formal message from Earth's government. The Hegemony had been neutral in the conflict, but they controlled several important trade routes. What does Earth want? Asked Prime Crystal Zephmora. We want to buy supplies. Samantha replied, food, raw materials, medical equipment. And in return, we offer alien technology, specifically Imperial Fleet technology. The crystals around Zephmora's body pulsed with interest. You have captured Imperial ships. Several. We're willing to share the technology with any species that wants to improve their defenses. Zephmora was quiet for a long moment. The crystalline hegemony had been forced to pay tribute to the Empire for centuries. The chance to obtain imperial military technology was tempting. What guarantee do we have that the Empire won't punish us for dealing with you? Samantha smiled. The same guarantee you had when you started paying them tribute. None. But now you have a choice. The meeting lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the crystalline hegemony had agreed to provide supplies to Earth in exchange for captured alien technology. Similar negotiations took place with dozens of neutral species. Earth wasn't trying to build an alliance. They were trying to undermine the Empire's control over the galaxy. The psychological warfare campaign reached its peak when Captain Bill Thompson's raiders hit the Imperial Academy on Vextalin Prime. The Academy was where the Empire trained its future leaders. It was supposed to be completely secure. The humans approached in a captured Imperial transport, claiming to be delivering new equipment. By the time the Academy's defenders realized what was happening, the humans were already inside. But instead of killing the alien cadets, the humans did something worse. They gave them a choice. You can't stay here and continue training to be our enemies, Captain Thompson announced over the Academy's communications system. Or you can leave and tell the galaxy what you've learned about the Empire. What have we learned? Asked one brave cadet. That your leaders sent you to fight an enemy they don't understand, for a cause they can't explain. In a war they can't win, the humans planted explosives throughout the Academy, but they set long timers, long enough for anyone who wanted to leave to get away safely. Half the Academy's students chose to abandon their training rather than continue serving the Empire. The Empire's response was swift and brutal. They began executing deserters and defectors. They increased security at all military installations. They threatened to destroy any world that aided the humans. But the damage was already done. The idea of resistance had spread too far to stop. Admiral Krexithel submitted his report to Fleet Command with growing dread. The humans have changed the nature of galactic warfare. They're not trying to conquer territory. They're trying to destroy the concept of empire itself. Explain, ordered Fleet Admiral Zondar. Every human attack is designed to inspire rebellion. They release prisoners instead of killing them. They share captured technology with neutral species. They offer escape to enemy soldiers. And this is effective, sir. We've lost contact with 47 subject worlds. 12 neutral species have stopped honoring our trade agreements. Our own recruitment is down 60%. Zondar felt the weight of 3,000 years of galactic order crumbling around him. What do the humans want? That's the problem, sir. They don't seem to want anything we can give them. They want us to leave them alone, but they also want to destroy our ability to threaten anyone else. So they want to end the Empire. Yes, sir. And they're succeeding. The breaking point came when the humans attacked the prison world of Golta 7. The planet held political prisoners from across the galaxy, species that had resisted imperial rule and been defeated. The attack was led by Captain Danny Rodriguez and 200 human volunteers. They knew it was a suicide mission. The planet was heavily defended and surrounded by minefields. But the humans had learned something important. Sometimes the moral victory was more important than the military one. They broadcast their assault. Live to the entire galaxy. Every species could watch as humans died to free aliens they had never met, from worlds they had never seen. "This is Captain Rodriguez," he announced as his ship broke through the planet's defenses. "We're here to prove that no one should die in chains. That's what Earth stands for." The battle lasted 3 days. The humans were vastly outnumbered and outgunned, but they freed over 10,000 political prisoners before the last human soldier died. The prisoners scattered across the galaxy, carrying stories of humans who had died for strangers. The psychological impact was immeasurable. Dr. Velinari studied the rebellion reports flooding in from across the Empire. The pattern was clear and terrifying. "The humans have created something we've never encountered," she told the emergency council session. "They've made resistance into a religion." "Religion?" asked council leader Murdoch. "Every species that joins their cause believes they're fighting for something greater than survival." The peace negotiations were scheduled to take place on the neutral world of Nexus Station. It was a massive space station built at the center of the galaxy, far from any empire's territory. For 3,000 years, it had been used for trade and diplomacy between species. Fleet Admiral Roy Hamilton commanded the human delegation. He brought 12 ships, all of them captured from the Empire and upgraded with human modifications. The message was clear. Humans could beat the Empire with their own technology. General Martha Cruz served as the military advisor, while Ambassador Rachel Green handled the actual negotiations. Rachel had been a lawyer before the war. Now she was Earth's voice to the galaxy. Remember, President Catherine Burke had told them before departure, "We're not just negotiating for Earth. We're negotiating for every species that wants to be free." The Empire's delegation was led by Council Leader Murdoch himself. This was unprecedented. Never before had the highest leader of the Empire personally attended peace talks with rebels. Dr. Velinari accompanied him, along with Fleet Admiral Zondar and a dozen other high-ranking officials. The sight of so many powerful aliens coming to negotiate with humans sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The first meeting took place in Nexus Station's Great Assembly Hall. The room was designed to accommodate dozens of different species, with varying atmosphere and gravity requirements. Ambassador Rachel Green entered the hall wearing a simple blue uniform, with Earth's flag on the shoulder. She looked tiny compared to the massive alien delegates, but she walked with confidence. "Council Leader Murdoch," she said, offering a formal nod. "Thank you for coming. We're ready to discuss terms." Murdoch's tentacles writhed nervously. In his long career, he had accepted the surrender of hundreds of species. He had never negotiated with equals before. "What are your demands?" he asked. Rachel smiled. "We prefer to think of them as requirements for peace." She activated a holographic display showing the terms Earth had prepared. First, complete recognition of Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territory. No Imperial ships or personnel are allowed in human space without permission. The alien delegates murmured among themselves. This was already more than any rebel group had ever demanded. Second, Withdrawal of Imperial forces from any world that requests independence. Species have the right to govern themselves. Fleet Admiral Zondar leaned forward. That would mean the end of the Empire. That's the idea. Rachel replied calmly. Third, establishment of trade relations between Earth and any species that wishes them, without Imperial interference. Dr. Velinari spoke up. You're asking us to dissolve 3,000 years of galactic order. We're asking you to stop forcing your order on others, Rachel corrected. If species want to join your empire voluntarily, that's their choice. But it has to be a real choice. Council Leader Murdoch was quiet for a long moment. And if we refuse? These terms, General Martha Cruz stood up. Then we continue what we've been doing. We keep showing the galaxy that the Empire can be resisted. You cannot defeat us militarily, Zondar protested. We don't need to, Martha replied. We just need to keep proving that you're not invincible. Eventually, your own people will stop believing in the Empire. The truth of her words was evident. In the reports flooding Imperial Command, rebellion was spreading faster than they could contain it. Entire sectors were declaring independence. Imperial forces were stretched thin trying to maintain control. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The aliens tried to offer compromises, limited autonomy for Earth, reduced tribute from other worlds, shared governance arrangements. Rachel rejected every offer. You still don't understand, she told the assembled delegates. This isn't about getting a better deal within your system. This is about ending your system. What you're proposing is chaos, Dr. Velinari argued. Without central authority, the galaxy will tear itself apart in warfare. Maybe, Rachel admitted, but that's better than eternal slavery. On the 3rd day, Captain Bill Thompson arrived, with news that changed everything. His ship, the Independence, had just completed a mission that made further negotiations pointless. Report. Admiral Hamilton ordered. Mission successful, sir. We've delivered the liberation packages to 47 worlds simultaneously. The liberation packages were humanity's final strategic weapon. Each one contained blueprints for human technology, tactical manuals for guerrilla warfare, and most importantly, detailed plans for building weapons that could destroy Imperial ships. 47 worlds now have the knowledge they need to build their own resistance movements. Bill continued. The information is spreading faster than the Empire can stop it. Council Leader Murdoch received the news minutes later. His communication officer's voice was shaking. Sir, we're receiving reports of uprising on dozens of worlds. They're using human tactics and human technology. Murdoch looked at Ambassador Rachel. You've doomed the galaxy to endless war. No, Rachel replied. We've given it the chance for real peace. Peace between equals, not between master and slave. The final session took place on the 4th day. By then, news had reached Nexus Station that the crystalline hegemony had formally declared independence. From the Empire, 3 other major powers had followed suit. Dr. Velinari presented her final analysis. The psychological warfare has succeeded. Beyond our worst projections, the concept of imperial authority has been permanently damaged. Even if we destroy Earth, we cannot restore the old order. "What do you recommend?" Murdoch asked. "Acceptance of human terms. The Empire as we knew it is already dead. We can either manage its transformation or watch it collapse into chaos." Fleet. Admiral Zondar stood up angrily. "We have the largest military force in galactic history. We can crush these rebellions. With what soldiers?" Dr. Velinari asked quietly. "Half our fleet has requested transfer away from combat duty. The other half is showing signs of severe psychological trauma from fighting humans." She activated a display showing recruitment statistics. "Military enlistment is down 90%. Our existing forces are suffering massive desertion rates. Admiral, we may have the ships, but we don't have the will to use them." Admiral Hamilton listened to the alien arguments with growing satisfaction. The humans had won the war without winning a single major battle. They had broken the Empire's spirit. "We have one final offer," Rachel announced. "Complete acceptance of our terms, and we'll help you manage the transition to a free galaxy." "Help us." Murdoch's tentacles curled with confusion. "We don't want chaos either," Rachel explained. "We want stable, independent worlds that can trade and cooperate peacefully. We're offering to share our organizational experience. And if we refuse," Colonel Steve Parker, who had led the suicide mission at the prison world and somehow survived, spoke from his wheelchair, "then we keep doing what humans do best. We keep fighting until you give up." The alien delegates looked at him with a mixture of fear and respect. Steve had become legendary throughout the galaxy as the human who had volunteered for certain death to free alien prisoners. "How many more humans are willing to die for this cause?" Murdoch asked. "All of us," Steve replied simply. "That's what you never understood. We're not fighting to avoid death. We're fighting to choose how we die." The silence that followed was broken by Dr. Velinari. "Council leader, I recommend immediate acceptance of human terms." Murdoch looked around the chamber at his advisors. Every one of them was nodding in agreement. "Very well," he said finally. "The Veloni Empire accepts your terms. But understand, Ambassador Green, you are ending 3,000 years of galactic stability." "Good," Rachel replied. "It was a stability built on oppression. What we're building will be better." The formal signing ceremony took place the next day. Representatives from dozens of species came to witness the end of the Imperial Age. Ambassador Rachel Green signed for Earth and humanity. Council leader Murdoch signed for what remained of the Empire. But the most important signature came from Sylvac, the young Kepharan who had been Tyler Brooks' first alien recruit. This document establishes the Galactic Council of Free Worlds, Rachel announced. A voluntary association of independent species committed to mutual defense and peaceful cooperation. The ceremony concluded with the formal declaration that would be remembered throughout galactic history. By order of the Galactic Council, Rachel read, "Earth is hereby recognized as a protected world, with full sovereignty over its territory and colonies. Any species that threatens Earth or humanity will be considered an enemy of galactic freedom." But the real declaration came from an unexpected source. Dr. Velinari had prepared a scientific report that would become the foundation of Galactic. Thought after extensive study, she announced, This council formally designates Earth as the galaxy's most fearsome planet, not because of its military might, but because it produced the only species in known history that considers freedom more valuable than life itself. The declaration continued. Earth and humanity are hereby granted special status as guardians of galactic freedom. Any world requesting liberation assistance may petition Earth for aid. Admiral Hamilton smiled as he heard the words. Humanity had gone from being unknown primitives to being the galaxy's protectors in less than 2 years. The celebrations on Earth lasted for weeks.